Welcome to Dull Talk, episode 1. First topic we're talking about is Oregon football. Uh, I'm currently a sophomore at the University of Oregon. Last year and this year, 2024, 2025, they've had highs of highs, lows of lows. In particular, how this season has ended the last 2 years were really low. And I want to talk about Dan Lanning to start things off. He's our head coach. His first non assistant coaching job, where he was as in like a defensive coordinator job, was back at Georgia in 2019 when he got hired under Kirby Smart. Before that, he bounced around a lot, which is very normal for graduate assistants or wide receiver coaches, just lower level coaches. It's very normal for coaches to go coach at multiple spots. And when he was the defensive coordinator under Kirby Smart, he was there until 2021, so he was there for 3 years, 2019, 2020, the pandemic year, and 2021, so 2 normal seasons, 1 kind of weird year. So he won a national title in 2021 with the Georgia Bulldogs. The only loss was against Alabama Crimson Tide in the SEC title game. They redeemed themselves. They won. They beat Alabama to win in the national title game. Then in the offseason, he takes his first ever head coaching job at the University of Oregon, where he's been for the last 4 seasons since 2022. The last coach before Dan Lanning was Mario Cristobal, who left Oregon after he had a pretty good season in 2021. He left for his alma mater, the Miami Hurricanes, who just played in the national title game. And then, Dan Lanning, when he came in 2022, he had to play a very tough game. His first opponent was on a neutral site game against the reigning national champions, the Georgia Bulldogs, team that he knows very well. He just coached for. He's a key contributor for Georgia winning the national title. And then he had to go play Georgia in Atlanta at a quote-unquote neutral site game, which is, extremely ridiculous. And we got embarrassed. We lost 49-3. But in his defense, Georgia did go undefeated. They won the national title again that year, back-to-back, and they were the clear number 1 team. After Dan's first game, he got a streak going, and then we were about 9-1, headed into a rivalry game against University of Washington, UW at home, where we lost 37-34, a game we could have easily won. Bo Nix got hurt in that game, which was really unfortunate. 2 weeks later, we were 9-2. We played the Civil War against Oregon State on the road in Corvallis, where we lost 38-34. It's the only time Dan Lanning ever lost to Oregon State. Last 3 years, he's won. He's 3-1 against Oregon State, which is good. It's on the right direction. So he went 9-3 his first year, and we beat North Carolina 28-27 the Holiday Bowl. Not really any value. It doesn't help a lot, but it doesn't hurt you. 2023, we come back, Dan Lanning's second year. Last year of the Pac-12, we find out the Pac-12 changing, and also it's the last year of the 14 playoff. So we started off the season pretty rock solid. We're 5-0. Go play UW rivalry in Seattle. We lost a close game, 36-33. Our kicker missed a field goal from 43 yards as time expired. If he made it, we would have gone to overtime. Don't know what would have happened there, but coulda, shoulda, woulda. Then we ran the table. Dan Lanning got his first win at home, 31-7 against Oregon State, which is great start. It's taking care of business in the Civil War. And we were 11-1, and we had a rematch with undefeated UW, who we'd already played in the Pac-12 title game, the last ever Pac-12 title game before the Pac-12 has been relegated. We lost another close game to UW, 34-31. So this was the first year in 2021 where Dan Lanning lost back against the same team twice in the same year, and he lost by 3 points both times. Then we come back 2024. We go undefeated. We're Big Ten champs, which is rock solid, very impressive. We had a huge win against Ohio State. I was at that game. It was a unbelievable game, great experience to be at. And we got the worst ever draw a 1 seed has ever gotten in the sport of college football. Somehow, Boise State, which we almost lost to back in week 2 of 2024, they somehow ended up getting the 3rd seed. They were the Mountain West champions. They didn't play. The only Power 4 team that they played was us, which they lost to. It was a very close game. Uh, they lost to us, and they somehow ended up getting the 3 seed over Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State, and Tennessee, and a bunch of other teams, which somehow never gonna understand that. The committee, they did realize it and they changed it, but the team that we had to play we got to have a rematch, and we ran into what was an angry Ohio State team that had lost to Michigan 4 years in a row, and we got embarrassed in the Rose Bowl. Obviously, I think if we had another rematch against them later, which it should have happened, we should have had a rematch against Ohio State later down the line. Shouldn't have had a rematch directly in the quarterfinals. I'm going to give it to Ohio State since we had a rematch and they won. I think they would have won a rematch, but it's too bad that the rematch happened in the quarterfinals and not the semifinals or the finals. If the bracket was how it was this past year, which I think this past year's bracket, the 12-team playoff, was pretty good, where top 4 teams, you get a bye, and then it's everyone else, and the only thing that they're protecting is the top 5 conference winners. So it's, in theory, the top 4 power conferences, even though Duke won, we all know that messed some things up, but it worked out well this year. It worked out pretty well this year. The committee got it right. And, Oregon, it was just a very tough year because we go 13-0. We win the Big Ten. Dan Lanning gets his first legit hardware, and we beat Penn State. We beat Ohio State. We beat everyone in the Big Ten. It's like we've conquered the Big Ten in our first year, and Dan Lanning got his first win against UW. He went to 1-3 against UW at the time. I was at that game. We blew them out at home, which we should have, and did his job. That was a great game to be at, but it was very frustrating. And then, we move on in 2025 where, we got off to a good start. We got a huge win early against Penn State on the road, and I'm glad we did that. And then we got a bye, and Indiana, they got a bye, and we played each other. And Indiana, they got the better of us. That was a close game. We only lost 30-20. And if a few things go differently, we would have won that game. Indiana, at the second quarter, as time expired, their kicker made a 58-yard field goal, and our kicker missed a 36-yard field goal in the second quarter. If those two things flip-flop, that's 6 points right there, and it goes to a 3-point game. I mean, I just think the outcome, it was a lot closer of a game than what people were originally saying. A lot of people were saying, oh, Oregon got embarrassed. I don't think we got embarrassed. I just think Indiana, as we learned now, they're the best team. They're the most accomplished team in the college football history. I mean, they've 16-0, but they're the clear number 1, and there's nothing wrong. They can do that. And then Oregon, we rallied. We had and we needed to win. We had our back against the walls. We needed to win a tough game against Iowa. It's a trap game. We won against Iowa. We needed to win against USC. We won against USC. The winner of that game was going to probably be in the playoffs. And then we go play on the road at UW. We beat UW. I mean, if they beat Wisconsin, the winner of that game would have had an argument to make the playoffs. And I'm glad we beat UW. That was Dan Lanning's first win in Seattle, which is awesome. Dan Lanning's now 2-3 against the Huskies, which is moving in the right direction. The last 2 times he's played them, he's won, which I like to see. And then one thing that's interesting that I found about Dan Lanning is there's 3 really interesting things in the past 4 seasons about the Dan Lanning era at Oregon. So number 1 is Dan Lanning's only loss Dan Lanning's last loss against a team that didn't make the national title was to Oregon State back in his first season, 2022. So every loss Dan Lanning has had has come against a team that has made the national title or has won the national title. Since that loss to Oregon State and UW, and then also in 2022, we also lost Georgia. So we lost to the team that won it all. So in 2023, we had 2 losses to UW. They went undefeated, made it to beat Texas in the Sugar Bowl. SEC sucks. They then lost to Michigan in the national championship. And then in 2024, our one loss was to Ohio State, who eventually won it all. And we also beat Ohio State earlier in the season. And the team that also beat them, Michigan, we also beat them earlier in the year. So, it shows you, like, Dan Lanning, he's an unbelievable coach. That's statistic number one that I wanted to talk about. And this year, 2020 and 2025, we literally lost to Indiana twice, who they're playing at another level this year. They're the clear number one. I got to clap it up for Indiana. They're that good. Number two, Dan Lanning is one of the best coaches at home. Dan Lanning is 25-2 at home in the last 4 seasons. His two losses have come against number one against UW in his first season, where Bo Nix got hurt. We only lost by 3 points. We easily could have won that game, and he's had some close wins as well. We beat Ohio State in an unbelievable game that could have easily gone the other way. I'm not going to deny that. I was there. That was a crazy ending because the Ohio State quarterback, I'm blanking on his name right now, he slid, and if he didn't slid, Ohio State's kicker would have had a chance to win the game. But I want to compare that to Kirby Smart at Georgia. His last 4 seasons at Georgia, he's 25-1 at home. His one loss was to Alabama, and was this past year against Alabama, and then he redeemed himself in the SEC title game. And Ryan Day, who's been at Ohio State, he's 28-2 with his 2 losses coming against Michigan. Both of his losses were at home against Michigan. And Dan Lanning's other loss was against Kirk Cignetti, this team this year, that against Indiana, which is the clear number 1 team. And as the SEC, we all know they love to talk about, down south of the Mason-Dixie line is, a quote-unquote good loss. So Dan Lanning's 2 losses, well, I guess bad loss to UW at home. Okay, UW's not good when we lost them back in 2022. But the loss to Indiana, that's not a bad loss. Okay, at home. We're talking about his at-home losses. Now, the final statistic, the third statistic I want to talk about is when Dan Lanning's defense at Oregon holds the opposing team to under 30 points versus when our defense gives up 30 points or more. So in 2022, when Dan Lanning's defense held the opposing team to under 30 points, Oregon was 8-0. Dan Lanning, when his defense in the Oregon Ducks held opposing teams to under 30 points, 2023, Dan Lanning was 10-0 when the opposing team scored 30 points or more, aka UW. Dan Lanning was 1-2. In 2024, when teams scored 30 points or less, Dan Lanning was 10-0 again. And when teams scored 30 points or more, Dan Lanning was 3-1. And then in 2025, when teams scored 30 points or less, Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks were 12-0. When teams scored 30 points or more, Oregon was 1-2. So over the last 4 years, when teams scored 30 points or less, Dan Lanning is 36-0. He's undefeated. When teams scored 30 points or more, Oregon is 7-8. So the conclusion of that is, number one, Dan Lanning is a really good coach. Okay? He wins games he's supposed to win. He doesn't lose games he's supposed to lose. And, excuse me, at some point, Oregon's going to win the national title. And when he does that, he will become a great coach. But as of now, he's only a good coach because he's yet to win a national title. I think that's a fair argument. I think many Duck fans will agree with me on that. But what's clear is we're a defensive football team. Dan Lanning is a defensive football coach. He was the defensive coordinator for a national championship winning team back in 2021 at the Georgia Bulldogs. Dan Lanning and Oregon, we need to build more of a run-first team to burn clock and to have lower scoring football games because that's where we're going to win, and that's where I would like to see us put more of our time and emphasis from coaching. Anyways, we're going to talk about now who's coming back and what positions we need to fill, what positions how I'm feeling. Starting off at quarterback on the offensive side of things, Dante Moore's coming back. It's awesome. We started last year. We know what he can do. We know where his floor is. We know where his ceiling is. And Dylan Raiola is transferred in from Nebraska. He's got 2 years left of eligibility, and I expect him to be the QB2. And if anything happens to Dante Moore, which hopefully doesn't, knock on wood, I think he'd be the quarterback who would step in. Next at running back, we got Jordan Davidson. He's going to be our power back. And Dare Hill Jr., he should be our faster back. They're our thunder and lightning pair. I think they're interchangeable. I just think one of them has Jordan Davidson. He's got better strengths, more short yardage situations. And Dare Hill Jr. is better on the edge. He's a little faster. However, we need more depth at the running back position. You can't just have two running backs. Injuries happen, and we lost Noah Whittington, which really hurt. And we also lost a bunch of other guys to the portal, and we need some more depth there at running back. At receiver, we got DeCorey Moore back. He's going to be a true sophomore. Jeremiah McClellan back. He's going to be fantastic. And the myth, the legend, Evan freaking Stewart is back. And this is going to be fantastic. We do lose Gary Bryant Jr., Malik Benson, but they did their part, and best of luck to those guys in the NFL. We have Jalen Lott coming in, who's a highly rated wide receiver out of high school. In the portal, picked up Iverson Hooks from UAB. He had a breakout year, UAB, this past season. I expect him to line up in the slot, as he's only 5'10", and at wide receiver, I'm not worried. And we're as long as Evan Stewart's back, I'm not worried at all. That's the main factor. We can stay healthy. That's a big one, I would say. At tight end, the only tight end we have coming back is Jamari Johnson. He's going to be our tight end number one. I would say for him, he had a breakout season. He's going to be our tight end number one. And then we have a freak athlete coming in, Kendrick Harrison. He's from North Carolina, the state. He's just graduated high school. He's 6'7". He's also going to be playing basketball. Excited to see him playing both football and basketball. And also in the portal, we got Andrew Olesh from Penn State. He seems like a stud. He's big in size and stature. I expect Olesh to be our tight end number 2, just because he's got a little bit more experience under his belt. But that could change, and injuries happen. And I'd like us to get in, more depth at tight end, just a little bit more guys to fill out our roster spots. However, where we lose the most on offense is the offensive line. We lose 4 out of 5 starters. Our center, Ipani Lalu, he is coming back. He's the only returner. He's a starting center, and that's going to be huge to have him. But the rest of our O-line is going to have to develop. We haven't gotten anyone in the portal. And to me, that says what that tells me is that's Dan Lanning saying, I have seen the guys in practice who we have. They're going to be starters next fall. That's what that tells me. We've gotten we got a 5-star lineman, Emmanuel Indehekcho from Maryland. We also got Tommy Tofi from San Francisco, California. A lot of these guys, they look good. And I'm expecting, there's going to be some big shoes to fill since, offensive line is very important, and they had some weaknesses, especially against Indiana, which were the only team that we lost to this year. Talking about the defensive side of things, starting off at corner, Brandon Finney Jr. is just arguably the best cornerback in college football. I mean, he's a clear, cornerback 1. I mean, he's an unbelievable stud. He just shows up in big moments. Across from him, I expect to be Ife Obadegwu or Nakeem Oford. Both of these guys are studs. And we also have Aaron Scott Jr., who's transferring in from Ohio State. and he hasn't really played a whole lot at Ohio State. But I feel like our outside corners are in great shape. Now, our at nickel and the interiors corners, nickel back and the dime position, we lost Jadon Kanati. And there's going to be an opening at nickelback, but I'm not worried because I think we have the depth and we have the guys that this position is going to be easily filled. I'm not worried at all. At safety, we got a strong safety. Specifically, we got Aaron Flowers coming back, which is huge. He started all year. And at free safety, we lost Dylan Thieneman. He was a great in run support. However, we got Coy Parrish in the transfer portal. He was a starter at the University of Minnesota. I expect him to replace him, and I think he's going to be a stud. Also, we got Peyton Wooyard, he's been with us. He's staying, and we got Jet Washington coming in for Bishop Gorman, Las Vegas, Nevada, and those guys will be able to step up if they need. So at defensive back, I feel really confident. At linebacker, we lose Bryce Betcher, and he was a stud. But we do have Jerry Mixon coming back, and there's going to be an opening for some spots, and I expect a lot of the guys who have been with us who are developing to step up. And that's what we're gonna have to wait and see because we haven't gotten a whole lot in the portal at linebacker, at least not at this current moment. Also, at defensive line, I know we've had some guys leave at defensive line, but they're leaving because Mateo Uiagalelei, Bear Alexander, Amari Washington, and Tudum Tuioti are all back. There's all started on our defensive line the whole year, and they're all coming back. That's going to be unbelievable. So at the defense, also, I'd like to note we lost Isaiah Purchase, and he was also played kind of like that outside linebacker position, which it's unfortunate that we're losing him just because, he was a contributor, and best of luck to him in the portal. I'm not sure where he landed. But on defense, we have about 7 out of 11 starters returning, which is astronomically huge. And on the offensive side of things, we're going to have, besides the 4 offensive linemen, Noah Whittington and Malik Benson and Gary Bryant Jr., we have a lot of guys back. And we're in a great spot to gear up for next year. And I'm very excited and to see what the future holds. And I hope you guys like this video. Like and subscribe. Comment down below on what you think I could do better. And when the Big Ten releases the dates on who the Oregon Ducks, who we're playing in the fall of 2026, I'll share my way too early 2026 preview. Thank you and have a great evening.